Alright, so Phase 3 of the MCU opens big with Captain America Civil War. But before we get into the review, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more Marvel reviews. Captain America Civil War is definitely one of my favorite of the MCU films, so let's go ahead and get into my review. The movie opens up in 1991 in Siberia, Russia with the Winter Soldier. And in this movie, Russian Hydra needs these code words to activate the Winter Soldier, which we didn't really see from the Shield Hydra in Captain America the Winter Soldier. They didn't need any codes, but this one relies on these codes that can activate the Winter Soldier, so he goes off on a mission, and we find out that the mission that he went on was to obtain some super soldier serum, and then he ended up killing Tony Stark's parents. And that becomes big at the end of the movie. So it's an interesting little open, and it definitely kind of takes us into what the mystery of the movie is going to be. Then we switch to present day, and the Avengers are in Lagos fighting Crossbones, and Wanda accidentally blows a hole in a building, I think injuring and killing some people. But this is the conflict that kicks off, leading to the Sokovia Accords. And then we get Tony Stark demonstrating his new holographic simulator interface thing, which showcases his kind of guilt over not saying goodbye to his parents. And then there's a cameo of Alfre Woodard where she confronts Tony and blames him for the death of her son in Sokovia. And it's a really great scene. Alfre Woodard just has the one little scene, but she gives a really great performance in such a small role. And it's what sparks Tony to agree with the Sokovia Accords. And I think it's implied that he maybe helped create the Sokovia Accords with General Ross, now Secretary of the State. So Ross asks Cap where Thor and Banner are, and he compares them to misplacing nuclear weapons, which I don't think is really comparable, because Thor and Bruce are people with their own minds, and they can make their own choices, and they're not Cap's responsibility. And I just don't like the idea of treating them as just weapons, because they're so much more than that, and they are Avengers and they can do good. And so I just really don't like that, and it really kind of shows how Ross views the Avengers in general. And there's a great line in this movie given by King T'Chaka. I like what he says: "Victory at the expense of the innocent is no victory at all," which kind of goes against what Cap tells Wanda later, when Cap says, "We try to save as many lives as we can. Sometimes that doesn't mean everyone, but if we can't find a way to live with it, then maybe next time nobody gets saved," right? So one of the things I really like about this movie is the competing philosophies and ideologies between the Avengers and the Sokovia Accords, because neither side is truly right and neither side is truly wrong. Cap doesn't sign the Accords because he mentions that it's run by people with agendas, and agendas change. But Tony isn't wrong for wanting to be held accountable and minimize casualty loss. So I think in the end, I think the movie kind of, and in the MCU going into Infinity War and Endgame, kind of says that Cap maybe was right to not sign the Accords. And we do learn in She-Hulk that the Sokovia Accords were repealed, but I don't think that makes Tony wrong in any way. So I really do like those philosophies about where responsibility lies and who should be accountable. You know, it's really just kind of an interesting overarching philosophy for this movie, and it is, I think, what does sort of ultimately drive the Avengers apart. We also get a funeral scene of Peggy Carter, and it's revealed that Agent 13 from the last movie is Sharon Carter, Peggy's niece, or probably great niece or something. And I think her speech is what sort of reaffirms Steve's decision not to sign the Accords. So it's a really good scene, and I do love when Black Widow comes in and she says, she's basically just there so he wouldn't be alone because he needs a friend. And I really do like their sort of growing friendship we've had with them throughout these movies. Then we get introduced to T'Challa and King T'Chaka from Wakanda. And in one small scene, we learn everything we need to know about the relationship as father and son, and it's just handled so well. And the death of King T'Chaka, it's the performance by Chadwick Boseman is just really well done and quite heartbreaking. And I really, in such a small role, it really endears me to King T'Chaka and then to T'Challa going forward. And then when we finally see him in the Black Panther suit fighting Bucky on that rooftop, it's just really awesome with the helicopter shooting bullets at him and he's just like not impressed by it. I really like that. The whole chase scene that follows is really great. And I just love Black Panther character and how he's used in this movie. I think it's so well done. T'Challa's confrontation with Zemo at the end is one of my favorite scenes, and it really completes his character arc for this movie. So I love everything about T'Challa and the Black Panther in this movie. I think it's really well done. So speaking of Zemo, he's kind of really a lackluster villain because he doesn't really do anything actively against the Avengers. He keeps asking about Mission Report 1991, and we're kind of led to believe that he's looking for those extra Winter Soldiers, but he isn't. He doesn't want the soldiers, and instead he wants to lure Cap and Tony there to play a video of Bucky killing Tony's parents. But the problem is that this implies Zemo knew that Bucky killed Tony's parents, and he just wanted the video, but that doesn't really guarantee that Cap and Tony were going to be there anyway, so it doesn't really make any sense. It's not a very clear plan, and ultimately he does end up succeeding, but really the Accords were already kind of doing that anyway, drawing a line between the Avengers. So I think maybe if Zemo had some sort of hand in, getting the Accords created, maybe that would have had a little bit better of effect. But, the fact that he just happens to find out about Tony's parents, and this all doesn't work very well with me. Although I do like the sort of arc that we give Tony with his parents in this movie. But Zemo's plan just doesn't, there's too many variables that could have gone wrong. It just doesn't make any sense. And then the last thing we get introduced to is Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. I love this introduction. We get introduced to Peter Parker first and then Spider-Man later. And it's a great way to introduce the character, and I really like his talk with Tony when he says, when you can do the things that I can do, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you. Again, it goes back to that philosophy about responsibility and, what is a person's responsibility to people when they have superpowers. It's a really great question, and it does sort of play into the overall philosophy of the film. And again, I just like these ideologies that we have about these superpowered beings and what's their responsibility to the world. And then, of course, we get the big battle at the airport, which is just awesome. We get all the Avengers and Ant-Man and Spider-Man and Black Panther and Bucky, Falcon and Vision and Wanda. Even Hawkeye's there, so it's a really great fun scene. I do like a lot of the jokes. The humor plays really well. I love just how Spider-Man interacts with everybody. It's a lot of fun. Them making jokes about how young he is. And Ant-Man turns into Giant Man, which is great reveal. So that scene is a lot of fun. It's really great action. This movie has a lot of great action in it, and I just think it works really well in this movie. So while this is a Captain America story, it does more than just focus on Steve's storyline and has a big consequences for the MCU as a whole going forward. I really like continuing Tony's arc of him dealing with the death of his father and everything, and that grief, and him, going from kind of resenting and maybe hating his father to softening up, and we'll definitely see that going forward in the MCU still, but I like that sort of emotional hook that we get with Tony here. So I really like watching this movie. I do think it's a little bit long, but it's still a great watch. It's a lot of fun. It's got the emotion, it's got the philosophy, it's got the spectacle, the action. It's just one of the best MCU movies to date, and I just really love it, and I do like Cap and his relationship with Bucky and everything. At the heart of it is Captain America's story, because that's what's driving the rest of the plot, but it does so much more than that. It tears the Avengers apart, it introduces the Sokovia Accords, it introduces two brand new characters, Black Panther, Spider-Man, and it just does a lot of really great stuff. So I think this movie is definitely one of the best in the MCU. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Captain America Civil War. I think it's great, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you love it, or are you someone who doesn't like it? I don't know if there's anybody out there, but if you are, let me know. So share your thoughts and stay tuned to the channel for more reviews. And that's it, and until next time, move or be moved. Bye.